Coming up on the next episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
Coming up next is George. Not Bailey, but Burns. And Gracie Allen. They are back. Sort of. And Karolyn and Dr. Chris will be interviewing. You won't want to miss this blast from the past next on Zuzu All Grown Up.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
You're now listening to Zuzu All Grown Up.
She's been featured in more than 20 films from the early days of film and television.
He is a psychotherapist and her loving husband.
Together, they are on a mission to brighten your day and your life.
It's a time to smile, a time to laugh, a time to expect more.
It's time to get inspired with your hosts, Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Chris Brunell.
It's time to meet Zuzu, all grown up.
Do you believe that life is wonderful in principle, but for some reason just isn't so consistently in practice? Every life will have its ups and downs. But have you ever thought that if there were only more people around you encouraging, uplifting, and even inspiring you, then life would be more fulfilling? If only people like George and Mary Bailey were in your inner circle, then life could truly be wonderful all the time? If so, we've got good news for you, because you can find such people on this podcast and at zuzunetwork.com. This podcast is the vision of Karolyn Grimes, Zuzu, and Dr. Chris Brunell, illustrating how the timeless message of It's a Wonderful Life can be and is applied to our modern lives and situations. Indeed, when you take that message to heart, your life will become immeasurably more wonderful. Visit us at zuzunetwork.com and listen to this podcast series to learn more about how. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another episode of Zuzu, All Grown Up.
Get ready for miracles. Get ready for Zuzu, All Grown Up.
Well, Gracie's memory might not be quite as amazing as George seems to imply, but we're sure are glad to have her and her husband on the show today. Actually, we are joined by two incredible George Burns and Gracie Allen impersonators, Peter Salzer and Holly Faris.
Gracie, I haven't heard from your sister Hazel. What is she up to?
Oh, why, George, Hazel's in the hospital. She just had her baby.
Well, that's terrific, Gracie. Is it a boy or girl?
Oh, I don't know, but we better run to the hospital to find out.
So?
So I know whether I'm an aunt or an uncle.
Gracie, you must be the smartest one in your family.
Oh, no, my brother Willie is no dummy either.
Willie?
Yeah, the one who slept on the floor.
Why would he sleep on the floor?
He had high blood pressure.
What's Willie doing now?
He just lost his job.
He lost his job?
Yeah, he was a window washer.
And
he was outside on the 20th story washing a window, and when he got through, he stepped back to admire his work.
And he lost his job?
Yeah.
Gracie, this family of yours,
Willie was a little baby. My father took him riding in his carriage, and 2 hours later, my father came back with a different baby and a different carriage.
Well, what did your mother say?
My mother didn't say anything because it was a better carriage.
Oh, a better carriage.
Yeah, and the little baby my father brought home was a little French baby, so my mother took up French.
Why?
So she could understand the baby.
Oh, when the baby started to talk.
Yeah.
Gracie, does all of your family still live together?
My father, my brother, my uncle, my cousin, and my nephew all sleep in one bed. And
in one bed? I'm surprised your grandfather doesn't sleep with them.
Oh, he did, but he died, so they made him get up.
Say good night, Gracie.
Good night, George.
Oh my goodness, this was an outstanding performance of George Burns and Gracie Allen. It was done by our guests, Holly Faris and Peter Salzer. We're so glad to welcome you today.
So how did you get into this?
Holly, I'll let you start off.
Okay, well, I was always a very disruptive child. I tell people I used to get hit for it. Now I get paid for it. It's something I just kind of always did. I mean, I was fascinated with the way people walked and talked. Especially, I had a wonderful breeding ground for that because I came from a family of accents with weird relatives and homeroom teachers, and they were my first impersonations, actually. I tell people that my mother's was a European Jew. My father was a deep Southern country boy. It was kind of like being raised by Dr. Ruth and Gomer Pyle. So you can't make this stuff up, you know? The real life stuff is the best comedy. I think my first impersonation was Mae West. I mean, I was like 8 years old walking around going, oh, come on and see me sometime. Yeah. I would have been in comedy or a straitjacket. I'm glad I got into show business.
I started out after I retired from my career in sales and marketing. I got a call from Backstage Magazine that they were looking for somebody to play in a Tropicana variety show, and they were looking for different characters like Al Jolson and Judy Garland and the Andrews Sisters and Cab Calloway. I told them I could do Al Jolson, I could do George Burns, I could do anybody. And I got a call the next couple of days later from these two guys, and they said, we love the idea of you doing George Burns. Could you at least let us know what George Burns sounded like? And I was kind of befuddled, and I finally said, say goodnight, Gracie. And they said, you're the guy. My wife and I were going on a cruise, and I wrote a short George Burns and Gracie Allen bit, and I got the glasses and I got the hair, and I went on stage, and it worked, and it's worked ever since. I have done some other people. I did Harry Truman for the White House Visitor Center, and I've done a couple of other people like Bernie Sanders and so on. And I do a lot of voice work as well.
What kind of training does someone have to go to become prolific at this impersonation?
People always say, you know, how do you change your voice? I think everyone has that. I think the difference is that impersonators have a different ear, and we hear the nuances, we hear the exaggerations that other people hear, but they can't really pick. Like when I do Joan Rivers, the first thing I heard when I was starting to impersonate her is that roughness in the voice. And I've heard female impersonators who look exactly like her, but then they walk out and they're doing their impersonation of a woman's voice. And, you know, I'm not anything against female impersonators. They've taught me everything I know, pretty much. The physicality of it and the makeup and the hair and the costumes. That roughness, that kind of like, you know, my Joe to Melissa, oh, can we talk? You know, that kind of roughness.
I don't consider myself an impersonator, and I don't think Holly does either. I think we consider ourselves tribute artists. And my approach doing George Burns and anybody else that I do is the approach is as an actor. And I try to get into character and try to understand what that person's all about and what that character is doing, how that character sounds. And I think that's what Holly has a fantastic ear for, getting the sound of the person well. There are a lot of impersonators that I've worked with, but I think Holly's got it nailed, especially the women that she portrays. She's one of the most talented people in the business.
I mentally do a thing where I embody them in my head. That's how it comes out, I guess.
When we're ready to go on stage, we internalize that character. We approach it from the acting perspective rather than somebody that's just trying to imitate somebody.
And we had a granddaughter who had that kind of acting characteristic, but she would lose herself sometimes. She would have a hard time getting back or coming back. I guess it just takes a lot of practice. So who are some of the characters that you pay tribute to?
I do a lot of other characters, but primarily voice work. I don't go on stage for any of them, except I did a short movie as Bernie Sanders. I've done, as I said, the work at the White House Visitors Center. My other acting has primarily to do with film work, stage work, and I do a lot of commercials, especially down here in Florida where I live.
When did you first meet, the two of you?
Doodah, yeah, we met at the Doodah. I remember Holly was doing Carol Channing at that time. We talked, and she did short Gracie with me, very similar to what you heard before. And we really haven't worked that much together over the years. We've been on stage at the same time. At this point in my life, I've kind of put George on a semi-retirement basis. The audience for that character has kind of dissipated, whereas the characters that Holly has portrayed, they're always new.
You learned about your commonality with family in Shanghai. What are the stories behind that?
That wasn't until like recently, and we've known each other for probably close to 20 years. Yeah. I mean, it's not the kind of thing that just comes up, you know. By the way, my family fled from the Nazis and went to Shanghai.
I think the story, we really started talking about it in great depth a couple of years ago. It turns out that I had an uncle who had no other place to go from Austria, which is where I'm from, where I was born, to go to but Shanghai. There was a very large Jewish community in Shanghai, and I think it was your aunt that went there from Germany, wasn't it, Kali?
My mother's whole family.
Most of my family was fortunate enough to come to the United States in 1939 as a result of my grandfather having a brother here who came to the United States and established business and did very well and sponsored us to come to the United States. It was very difficult for our family to leave Austria because the Austrians didn't want to let us out. They would have preferred to have my father working at the labor camp in Dachau, but fortunately we did get out at the last minute. My uncle, on the other hand, he was able to get out, but he had no place to go because the United States quota for people leaving those countries was very, very small at that time. And the only place that was open at that time was Shanghai. And that's where he and his brother went. They stayed there for the duration of the war, and it wasn't an easy time for them. They had a great deal of difficulty. China at that time was occupied by the Japanese. So, life was not easy for the Jews, and Chinese people on one hand did not necessarily accept them and want them to be there. So it was a pretty tough situation, but they did manage to create a community. And my uncle was a first violinist of the Jewish Symphony Orchestra in Shanghai. He left me some documentation, which I have forwarded to the Jewish Museum in Shanghai for their historian. Holly, why don't you tell the story about your aunt and your family?
My grandfather was traveling salesman throughout Europe. My mother's family is from Berlin. Very well off, like a lot of the Jewish people in Berlin, but the German Jews felt themselves Germans first and Jews second because a lot of them were veterans, including my grandfather, World War I. He had several medals, was decorated from World War I. But my grandfather had heard rumblings of things that were taking place. And nobody believed him because they were like, oh, this anti-Semitism, it'll blow over. We've been through this before. This is just what we have to live with. Well, after Kristallnacht, which, as you know, was when the Germans went and broke all the glass and destroyed a lot of the Jewish businesses, and also a lot of Jews were killed and imprisoned. After that night, my grandfather was desperately trying to find a way to get out. And originally they were going to go to Peru. Somebody squandered their money. They were learning Spanish. My grandfather always kidded with the one thing they learned, Vaya con Dios pero vaya, go with God, but go. That was like the first thing they learned in Spanish, but turned out that fell through. The only thing that was available was Shanghai. And he went to go to put the whole family on the list. And they said there's a 3-month wait. And this was like in May of 1939. And the war, of course, broke out in September of 39. My grandfather said, I can't wait 3 months. So he took their life savings, which at that time was about $1,000 American dollars, made the application again and put the money in the application. And when he showed up again, the guy said, I told you it's a 3-month wait. And he said, you may want to look at that application again. The guy opened it up and he goes, oh, we have passage next week. Just happen to have for 6 people, which was my mother, her sister, my aunt, who has written a whole book about it and is now in the Holocaust Museum, and my grandparents and my grandmother's sister and her husband and their parakeet. They all made it, literally took a slow boat to China. When they got on the boat in May of 1939, my grandfather had a note from the Gestapo to appear the next day. Wow. So they literally got out by the skin of their teeth. They went to Shanghai and literally, like Peter said, they lived in squalor. I think they had like one giant room where they all lived, and my aunt and uncle had another room. They had curtains just to separate their living quarters and have some privacy, but it was a giant room with 4 people, and there was one toilet in the whole building shared by like 14 people, or on the same floor. I'm not even sure, of 14 people. They said the minute you turn the light on, the cockroaches would just scurry. And my mother would just do things like they'd run after the rice things and somebody would cut a hole in the rice bags that were on the carts. They would just gather it up and take it home. And whoever picked out the most glasses or insects out of the rice got like an extra portion. And my grandmother, because they had very little kerosene, would steam the rice like under the mattress. This is the way they lived, and a lot of people died of dysentery, of malnutrition. A lot of people committed suicide, when they couldn't hear from their families. Oddly enough, I got a letter that came through from Theresienstadt, which was where my mother's grandfather died. And it was where he was a soldier in World War I. It was originally an army barracks, and that's where he had died. That was the model camp where the Red Cross came and they made it look like it was a country club. And meanwhile, in the background, it was a regular concentration camp. But still now, my aunt has passed. She used to give talks all throughout different high schools and different congregations. And at the Holocaust Museum, as I said, her book is called Once My Name Was Sarah, S-A-R-A. The Nazis did the degradation of the Jews in several steps. One of the last degradations that they did was they gave all the women their middle name Sarah and all the men their middle name Israel. We're still finding out from the Holocaust Museum. We're still getting information as to relatives.
Just recently, I received information, I'm sure you did as well, that there is a musical that's been written.
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
Start your morning right with premium coffee roasts available at ZuzuNetwork.com and drink them in your Zuzu All Grown Up coffee mug. Also perfect for tea and hot chocolate.
Stay inspired throughout the day with the same gratitude journal used by Karolyn and Chris, and check out t-shirts, hats, books, Christmas keepsakes, and more at ZuzuNetwork.com/shop.
Join Zuzu's network today at ZuzuNetwork.com/join.
Karolyn is creating an international network of aspiring angels, everyday people who believe that they can help make the world a better place by making life better for even just one other person.
Let us know you want to earn your wings at ZuzuNetwork.com/join, and Karolyn and Chris will send you inspirational material to support you in your journey.
We're back with more Zuzu All Grown Up.
It's basically about the Chinese, how the Jewish immigrants brought classical music to China and taught the children how to play the violin. And now some of the greatest concert violinists are Chinese. So it's kind of full circle. And it's called Shanghai Sonatas. And guy who's in charge of it is the Big Mahaf. I don't know his actual title, but he's from the University of Delaware. So if you look it up in the University of Delaware, Shanghai Sonatas, you can find all the information about it. But they're hoping to take it to Broadway, and it's phenomenal. It'll bring you to tears. I hope it happens.
It's amazing how much information you're able to gather.
You know, when the wall came down, all the books and everything, you know, you could go to the Holocaust Museum. You can even do it online. Germans were so meticulous in keeping records. How we're just still getting more information and finding out that we have more relatives than we even knew. Like, okay, so we found out the one relative. Well, what about their siblings? And now we keep investigating more and more, and we're finding paperwork of dates they came and where they came from and where they died. And we just found a cousin that my aunt used to talk about that she saw once at a bar mitzvah. And she loved him because he had red hair like her. And we found out at 15 he died at Mauthausen, which was a labor camp, but no picnic either, obviously. And he died at 15 there. And we know the date he died, how old he was. We're even getting pictures of his school. You know, it's still coming out.
Holly, you've been performing on cruise lines. Can you give us some information about where your travels have taken you, and what is your favorite location?
Most fascinating one I did was when I opened for Frank Gorshin, who was his opening act for 5 years. I was actually instrumental in him getting the Say Goodnight Gracie on Broadway. And I kept telling his agent, you know, Frank is one of the best impersonators or impressionists around. And Truman Capote had just won a Tony for True at the Helen Hayes Theater, and they were doing all these one-person shows. Finally, I convinced him. They got Rupert Holmes to write the screenplay. I believe he got nominated for the screenplay for Say Goodnight Gracie. And I did the original voice of Gracie on there. And I actually helped Rupert Holmes. I said, this is a better joke, I think, here for Gracie, if you don't mind me saying. And he took my advice, you know, because I knew all the Gracie material. And I went into New York and I recorded the original Gracie. It's a long story. It's one of those long, woulda, shoulda, coulda Hollywood stories as to why I didn't get it on Broadway. Let's just say somebody didn't keep their promise, but that would have been my equity card. I went with Frank Gorshin to Alaska, which was great, but I also went to Asia and Thailand. We went to Bali. The people there were so warm and so kind. I think that was one of my favorite places. Yeah.
What else have you done in show business? And have any of your family members been involved as well?
My aunt was a concert pianist. I started in show business, I guess, when I was about 15, 16 years old. I was a radio actor for the All-City Radio Workshop in New York, where we did radio plays for the Board of Education. I ran into an obstacle called my mother, who didn't want a Jewish boy to go into show business. So I became an engineer. And during the first couple of years of our marriage, I did some disc jockeying on weekends and finally, when I decided I've had enough of corporate America and I was getting into my 60s, I decided to go back into acting. I've had the opportunity to work in film in the movie Doubt and a couple of other movies that were not. I've done a lot of independent work. I had the opportunity to do character that I had always wanted to do. From the time I saw the Jolson story as a young boy, I wanted to be Al Jolson. I wanted to be the next Al Jolson. I want to get out there and sing and dance. So at the end of my business career, I auditioned for a show in Delaware called Gershwin by George, and it was the story of the very last radio show that George Gershwin did in New York before he and Ira moved to California to start writing for the movies. And I played the character Al Jolson, and I had a chance to sing Swanee and other songs. I was able to do my Jolson thing. I've done a lot of table reads as well for people who are putting shows together. That's one of my favorite things because memorizing really takes a long time. But Holly and I were recently asked to be in a musical that's in the very early stages called A Day in Brooklyn. It's a musical that's based on a play that was successfully put on in New York, Los Angeles, and a number of other places. So we're looking forward to playing husband and wife in that one. That should be a lot of fun. We recently did some recording of the music for that show, and I'm having a good time. I'm also doing a lot of writing, the screenplay for a TV series that's we're trying to sell right now, and I've done a TV series, comedy TV series, sitcom that I've written that's also out there trying to get it peddled. And as you know, this industry is very difficult to get a hold of anyone to get anything done anymore. As an actor, most of the auditioning that we do now is done on your camera and done at home. Fortunately, I have a green screen so that we could do Holly's characters as well. I'm having fun. Holly's having fun. And that's what life is all about, I guess, at these days.
So, Holly, what was it like playing Mae West in the movie Angels with Angles?
It was great because somebody else was doing my makeup. They were fantastic. I mean, it was their wig, it was their makeup. So it was really a lot of fun. That has gotten me a lot of Mae West work.
So, Peter, we understand that you do voiceover work in 18 different voices. What's that like? And how do you develop those voices?
Listening for the most part and getting into the character. I guess I've got enough of a vocal range to go from what you're hearing now to, being a character that can talk about many different things and many different people. And I can go way up in character, or I can go way down and be the last man that gets across the bridge before the bridge breaks down.
Oh, that's incredible.
Peter, what was it like starring in the sitcom Greenblatt's in Ken Sopranos?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Never really got on the air, but we were able to shoot 2 episodes in 5 days. When they gave me the part, I said, I will take the part, but I need to have a teleprompter because I can't remember all those lines for the 2 episodes in 5 days. And they said, sure, we'll get a teleprompter. When we got on set, it turned out that the teleprompter was not compatible with the camera. So I started learning lines, and I would sit in a corner and learn my lines as we went on. And I guess everybody thought I was kind of a snob because I was always off in the corner by myself doing this. So that's the only way I got to do the lines. They Ubered me back and forth from home, and it was a lot of fun doing it. And it was a good comedy. And like everything else in this business, the 2 guys are very, very bright, but they couldn't get it sold. Selling anything these days is very difficult, and you must know that, Karolyn, with your experience in the business.
It's a different world now, which isn't always good. So, Holly, what reactions do you get when you're doing your performing and all the different people you do? You do so many characters.
She does a great Liza Minnelli.
I love to do Liza. But darlings, I was one of the last people to be on Larry King. Finally, he said to me, Liza, you weigh over 200 pounds. Get off of me. Everyone always asks me, Liza, why are you always marrying gay men? And I say, darling, they seem perfectly straight when we're dating. But then the minute we say I do, they just jump out of the closet like a Murphy bed.
Like Cher sings, do you believe in liposuction? And Dolly sings,
I wear size 95, and my straps are given. My 18-hour bra, it does hard labor for a living.
I love it. My goodness.
The thing that people always tell me is that, I get changed right on stage. I never leave the stage, down to my skivvies. I mean, when I do Tina, I finally take a few things off so I could have the short skirt on and everything. I have a few layers on. But The thing that people constantly tell me is, how do you make yourself look like those people just by throwing a wig on in your jacket? And it's the reason why I never got plastic surgery, because there's so many things I would like to do, if I got plastic surgery.
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
To find out more about the organization featured in today's episode or a previous episode, and to learn more about how you can help, go to zuzunetwork.com/beanangel.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and I dedicate a lot of my time going fast. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time-to-talk, a message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Have you heard? Affordable healthcare is better than ever. And right now there are more carriers and plans to choose from. If you're between 18 and 64 years old with a household income of $25,000 or less, this message is for you. Right now, the government's Affordable Care Act is available for individual and family health coverage plans with little to no cost to you. Don't gamble your health. Call Health Care for All. 70% of callers qualify for a zero-cost healthcare coverage. See if you are one of them. Call now. Our agents are standing by to help you get the health insurance plan you and your family needs and deserves. If you're uninsured or struggling to afford your current health insurance, help is just a phone call away. This is not Medicaid or Medicare. This is the marketplace with the largest selection of healthcare plans from the Affordable Care Act. To find a plan that's right for you, call 800-788-2406. That's 800-788-2406.
A careless driver can change your life in an instant. Do you know what to do or who to call? If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident and don't have an attorney, call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free consultation. We can answer all of your questions and estimate the potential value of your case. Call Auto Accident Help Desk and connect with an expert personal injury attorney.
Call 800-348-7312. 800-348-7312.
Don't worry how to handle your medical bills, lost wages, and pain. We will get you the money you deserve.
They got me way more than the insurance company offered.
The consultation is free, and you don't pay any legal fees unless we win or settle your case. Make the smart call if you've been injured in an auto accident. Call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free legal consultation.
Call 800-348-7312. 800-348-7312. 800-348-7312.
Auto Accident Help Desk.
Zuzu's book club features recommendations from Zuzu herself on books she loves and thinks you will love also. All of the books that the club reads, fiction and nonfiction, are inspirational and uplifting. Folks, this is a life-enhancing club to be part of. You can sign up for free at zuzunetwork.com/book club. That's zuzunetwork.com/book club.
This is Zuzu, all grown up.
But I'm afraid, and Frank Gorshin was the one who told me this. He took my line, which is, I have so many wrinkles that a palm reader read my face. That's it. I could get right if I say it 3 more times. He had been offered, I think, on some reality show to have plastic surgery done. And he denied it. He declined it because he said, you will not be able to contort your face like you do. So I always remember that. I know everybody who's in the business has had lipo. They've had, the neck done. They've had the cheekbones done. And I'm like, I have to be able to contort my face, which is what I do when I do the characters. Joan is very long, her face is long. Oh, sure. Tina's very, kind of snarls. And if you can't do that, Liza's just there.
How do you go about studying your characters?
They just kind of come. I remember one time I had to do Roseanne Barr. And, for me, I find that people who I like or I admire are much easier to do. But people who I'm not that crazy about. So I had the hardest time performing as Roseanne Barr. That time she was just come out. She was a lot heavier and I had the padded suit. I had to listen to somebody else impersonate her to get the voice down. And I really liked her, but for some reason I had a block.
So what kind of events have you been hired to perform at? And are there any memorable ones that either one of you have?
One of my most memorable events was performing with Peter Nero and the Philadelphia Pops at a concert at the Academy of Music. There were 3,000 people there, and my wife was in the audience, and she said when I came out on stage, the lady behind her said, "I thought he was dead." I figured that was the best compliment I've ever had. That was one of the large venues are really the best place to perform, because especially when you're doing comedy, when you're doing Joan or when I'm doing George, we depend so much on the feedback that we get from the audience. Our timing is based on the feedback. So that's the larger the venue, the better the performance. And that was one of the stellar performances that I remember. I've done a number of other shows at large performing arts centers and so on. And yeah, those are the kind of audiences that you love to perform for, because it really sets up your timing.
What's been the most satisfying part of your 25 years in show business?
The challenges that all these different things, whether it's a film or a commercial or getting on stage as George or trying to be somebody else on stage in a play, it's just exciting to be able to do this and do this for the rest of your life if you so desire.
In my career, I have to say the most exciting thing that I ever did was early on when I was on the Joan Rivers show. Got to meet her like maybe 10 more times after that. So it was early on. I was just starting to do her. As I said, female impersonators, I would be nothing without my friends who are female impersonators. Somebody sewed me a dress in their garage, one of their old costumes. I got on there like last minute through another female impersonator who said they want all guys who are doing Joan, but they wanted one woman. And I was the only woman who they knew that I just was starting to do her. Mm-hmm. So I got the gig and I had to put in, this is how long ago it was when she had her talk show. I had to send my VHS tape, my audition tape. I was the only woman there. We were ready to go on. I was the only one ready, as well as Joan, and the rest of them were all running around in their size 4 Norma Kamalis, you know. And I looked at Joan and she looked at me and I said, "You know what, Joan? You and I are the butchest ones here." She thought that was so funny. She said, "Oh, you're very funny. Who writes your material?" I said, "I do. Call my writer." And she gave me a number. Then I found out she paid $10 a joke. And I said, hell, I need it more than she does. She knew I lived near Atlantic City. And she said, "Don't ever pay for a ticket. Here's my manager's name. Here's her number. Just call her and tell her you want to see me and come backstage and say hello." I was like, who does that? You know, the kindest, sweetest, most giving person in the world. So yes, I went to see her many subsequent times. I went backstage. She had famous people there, you know, to see her, but she always made time for me. She was so kind and so nice. And then I got to be on Celebrity Apprentice with her when she was actually one of the contestants and I was performing a Cher. I was on the show then and she said, "Thanks so much for being here." And I said, "Thank you." I said, "This is great," because we, you know, all of us did it for free. That was her task at the end, to have a big party. And then she subsequently won. And I said, "Your ring is just beautiful." I said, "Is it QVC?" Because I wanted to get it. And she goes, "Here." She took it off her finger and gave it to me. I wear that ring now. I never go on stage without it. I got to go on Celebrity Apprentice again because one of the contestants had a little tiff with her and wanted to have a Joan Rivers impersonator on. So I got to go on Celebrity Apprentice again. Yeah, she was always good to me. And I actually got to see her and go backstage with her thanks to one of the guys who was Joan Rivers on that original TV show with me. Said, you know, "I have room for 2 more people." That was in August and she passed in September. When she passed, people were calling me as if it was me who passed away. You know, they were offering their condolences to me. And I was like so shattered. It was like when my mother died. I mean, it was heartbreaking for me because I loved her so much.
How can anyone contact either of you about your work or your performances?
HollyFaris.com, HOLYFARIS.com.
It's fun taking a walk down memory lane.
Thank you very much for asking us.
Bye.
What a fun show. It really felt like we were back in time with George Burns and Gracie Allen. A special thanks to our guests, Peter Salzer and Holly Faris. Their comic timing together is impeccable and reminds us of a great comedy duo with a sense of humor and a love that transcends time. You can find out more about them at www.gracie petersalzer.com or on our website, zuzunetwork.com. For Karolyn Grimes and Chris Brunell, I'm Seth Kennedy. Thank you for joining us for Zuzu All Grown Up.
Do you know someone who is earning their wings? Someone practicing kindness and service to others? Perhaps an organization or initiative helping make the world we live in a kinder, sweeter place.
Or maybe you've witnessed the miraculous, the divine, the magnificent in some way in your life, and you'd like to share it with others. Go to zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory and let us know more.
You may end up being featured on an upcoming episode of Zuzu All Grown Up. That's zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory. Now here's Seth Kennedy with today's parting thoughts.
Seth Kennedy here once more with a final thought. Through the years and nearly 300 episodes of their television series, George Burns and Gracie Allen had a lot of mishaps and crazy scenarios to deal with. Their consistent response should serve as an inspiration for all of us. Sometimes, the best thing you can do when things seem to be going nuts is simply laugh. You might find that when given the choice to cry or laugh, the latter one makes things a lot easier to get through.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
We hope you've been inspired to live your most wonderful life now and to help those around you do the same.
Remember, no matter what you're going through, no matter who you are, there are people who care about you and your life makes a difference.
It is a wonderful life.
Check out zuzunetwork.com for more on today's and other episodes, including transcripts and merchandise you won't want to be without.
New episodes are coming soon.
For transcripts of today's broadcast, go to zuzunetwork.com/transcripts.
Watch a video clip of today's episode at www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up. That's www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up. Then click on the Reels tab from the top of the center of the page. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up. That's www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up. Catch up on past episodes and discover currently premiering and upcoming episodes as well, and get helpful links and exclusive clips from our recordings. That's www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up.
Zuzu All Grown Up with your hosts Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Chris Brunell.
Announcer and guide Seth Kennedy.
Executive producer Kevin R. Stillmock.
Coordinating producer Holly Ann Way.
Technical producer Stella Joel.
Managing producer Karina Filatova. A Wonderful Land production.
In collaboration with Radio Wonderful.